Terrible television, Part 1. If there is one thing that England is good at, it's making absolutely terrible television shows and then exporting them to the rest of the world. You could say that our bad TV is even more superior to the Americans, and that's very difficult because their television is diabolical. A few years ago, the proportion of reality shows on TV was actually pretty low. But over the last 10 years, there's been an explosion of this nonsense on our screens. Terrible television, Part 1. Prepositions. To export to somewhere. Example. Japan exports right-hand drive cars to the UK. The rest of somewhere or something. Example. I saw about half of the exhibit but didn't have time to see the rest of it. To be superior to someone or something else. Example. I find the old model of this car to be superior to the new one. The proportion of something. Example. The proportion of kids failing maths at that school is pretty worrying. On TV. Example. I saw the news on TV. An explosion of something. Example. There has been an explosion of good drama on TV recently. Terrible television, Part 2. One type of show that is particularly popular is when they show families with naughty, out-of-control kids and their parents trying to cope with their bad behavior. What usually happens is that an expert comes in, observes the family, and then makes some common-sense suggestions, such as, perhaps it's not a good idea to give your child Red Bull before bedtime. Terrible television, Part 2. Prepositions. To cope with something or a situation. Example. I find it hard to cope with working 2 jobs. To come in and do something. Example. I think the boss will come in on Monday. Terrible television, Part 3. Some of the parents are okay, but most of them are just weak. They are always trying to negotiate with the child. This can be okay in a stable situation, but by this point, the child has absolutely no boundaries and is completely wild. Also, the parents, usually due to stress and lack of sleep, are completely unreasonable. What surprises me is that the parents actually invite these camera crews into their houses so their kids can misbehave in front of an international audience. These shows are broadcast to a large audience, so the kids and parents are being judged by millions of total strangers. Terrible television, Part 3. Prepositions. By this point. Example. By this point, I'm used to people asking me about my scar. In front of someone, etc. Example. We met in front of the local shop. To broadcast to. Example. This show is broadcast to the London area.